Message has now been sent directly to the president. And here's King 5's Ted Land.
As an ER doctor in Renton, Douglas Lambrecht spent his career saving others.
He obviously cared about helping people.
But in his later years, he was the one in the hospital bed, first with kidney failure. Lambrecht was recovering from his latest round of kidney problems at Life Care Center of Kirkland, which became the center of the coronavirus outbreak in February. The 71-year-old father and grandfather was among the first to go into intensive care. His son Nathan and other family members wore gowns and protective equipment and filed into Douglas's room, 2 at a time, in his final hour.
It was so rough, and it was so bizarre being in the room with him, and not physically being able to touch him, to say goodbye.
Nathan and his family, who all live separately, had to go into quarantine, 2 weeks of isolation, wrapped in grief.
I'm upset, I'm angry, and I think that's where the letter came from.
Nathan started writing. This is an open letter to the White House and President Donald Trump.
We just weren't prepared.
He continued, "I've always assumed one of the main functions of a government is to provide for and protect its citizens. Instead, what I have seen is blatant disregard for our nation's safety and our government's inability to proactively respond in the face of a global pandemic. While I'm not asking the president to admit to mass murder, I am, however, requesting a public apology or statement of accountability in the actions that directly led to the death of my father." Nathan says this should not be viewed as political.
To me, it's a moral issue.
He signed the letter, a grieving son.
There's a mistake that was made, and we can look at mistakes that were made and learn from them and do better.
Ted Land, King 5 News.
Copy of the letter to Governor Jay Inslee, also to the president, as you know, and he's waiting to hear back from both of them.
Today, the president blamed the spread of the virus on the World Health Organization, and during a news conference, he announced he's halting hundreds of millions of dollars in funding to the WHO, and it's all pending a review of how it responded to the start of the coronavirus outbreak. Take a listen.
The WHO failed to investigate credible reports from sources in Wuhan that conflicted directly with the Chinese government's official accounts. There was credible information to suspect human-to-human transmission in December 2019, which should have spurred the WHO to investigate immediately.
Meanwhile, congressional Democrats are disputing President Trump's decision, calling it a, quote, desperate attempt to deflect blame.
Well, federal help is on the way to airports all across the state, $310 million. Because of the impact of this pandemic. King 5's Britt Moore has the latest from SeaTac.
On a normal day, SeaTac Airport is pretty busy, but tonight it's pretty empty. But relief is on the way. The airport will receive $192 million from the Federal Aviation Administration. It's money that will hopefully offset some of the financial damage caused by the coronavirus crisis.
Money can go a long way for us.
SeaTac Airport is one of 62 airports across the state receiving federal funding in order to stay afloat during the coronavirus crisis. Airport Director Lance Little says the money is necessary.
The impact has been significant.
Airports across the country have been dealing with record low travelers.
This time of the year, we typically have maybe 54,000 people coming through our checkpoints. Yesterday, we had approximately 2,500 people.
The funding is part of the Federal CARES Act intended to help fill in the gaps.
All the 9/11, SARS, all the other disruptive conditions that we have faced in the past, we have never ever seen anything as impactful as this.
There are restrictions on what the money can be used for, but the majority will go to operations and maintenance, including payroll and staffing.
Our concessionaires are also having severe impacts as well. We have 60 concessionaires that have closed down, and we only have 29 open as of yesterday.
The money can also be used for the airport's debt payments. There are conditions. The airport has to maintain 90% of its staff through the end of the year. Outside of SeaTac, Boeing Field will receive $18 million. Payne Field in Everett will receive $157,000, coming out of that larger pool of funding from the Federal Aviation Administration. Airport officials expect the money will be available beginning next week. The airport will not receive one large lump sum check. Instead, this will work as a reimbursement system. At SeaTac Airport tonight, Britt Moore, King 5 News.
Yesterday, Washington saw its lowest increase in coronavirus cases in weeks. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case today. 25 more people have died, bringing the death toll to at least 541 people. There are 156 more cases from yesterday as well. In total, nearly 123,000 people have been tested for the coronavirus. Still, the state says keeping our distance from each other is making a difference. But as Michael Crow tells us, it's not time to celebrate quite yet.
Officials today said this new report is encouraging, and the fact that we're all staying home is making a difference in flattening the curve. But they also said we have a ways to go before we can start thinking about relaxing these social distancing measures.
Oh, good kick. Ready?
Amanda and Kyle Gorley have been spending a lot of time at home. The food truck they own, the Vet Chef, has been largely parked since social distancing began.
Our last day of operation was March 19th, Thursday.
After the closures started, they hoped they would be able to keep paying employees. They've since had to lay them off because they just can't bring in enough money right now.
Just realizing without revenue, we can't support our payroll. We were fortunate enough to be one of the recipients of the Amazon Small Business Grants, which allowed us to get through March. You know, we're looking at how do we move forward with this extension? You know,
their story is a common one for small businesses. But there is some good news in the fight against COVID-19. Officials say we are making a dent in the rate of transmission. Social distancing is working.
It is very encouraging, and what this means is we should start thinking about the next steps in our transition away from the extreme social distancing measures. But it should be very clear to everyone that we are in no way ready to do that at this point.
Are there any indications in this modeling that might start to give you a rough timeline on when social distancing could be relaxed here in these counties?
I would say it gives us some confidence in saying not within the next month, most likely. But it's hard to predict beyond that because, as I said, you know, there still is a certain amount of caution we're using given the relatively limited amount of testing that's been done.
We don't know. We don't know.
For Amanda and Kyle, that's a tough message to hear. More time without income. They just hope it gets better soon.
It's a horrible situation. Nothing changes. Like, it sucks, and we want everyone to survive this, and we're not.
I mean, I think that the biggest thing is that we're just trying to stay positive through all of this and find the light at the end of the tunnel.
It was Michael Crow reporting. That promising news may have you thinking, well, what's the harm in just visiting one friend? Well, epidemiologists at the University of Washington, they illustrate what could happen if we do exactly that. Their model shows humans as green dots, and their interactions, those are the gray lines. So here's what it looks like when we are all social distancing with only just essential workers, the blue dots interacting. But if we all visit just one friend, interactions would go up, creating a ripple effect far beyond your social circle.
So it doesn't just increase it a little bit, it multiplies it by 14 times over. And you can see that when you look at the pictures. It just strikes you very clearly.
So the takeaway, stick with social distancing. Don't have people in your house who don't live with you, even if it is just one friend. If you want to find out more about this research and the numbers, just text the word friend to us at 206-448-4545.